on the brink of collapse. One decision saved an empire.
The Golden Years. Volkswagen before the 1970s. In the decades following World War II, Volkswagen stood as one of the most remarkable success stories in automotive history. The company's rise from the ashes of a devastated Germany to become a global powerhouse seemed almost miraculous. At the heart of this success was a single vehicle that captured the imagination of the world, the Volkswagen Beetle. The Beetle, originally conceived in the 1930s as the people's car, Volkswagen in German, had survived the war and emerged as a symbol of German industrial recovery and ingenuity. Its simple, reliable design made it accessible to ordinary people, while its distinctive rounded shape made it instantly recognizable on roads across the globe. By the 1950s and 1960s, the Beetle had become more than just a car. It was a cultural phenomenon. Throughout the 1950s, Volkswagen's production numbers told a story of uninterrupted growth. The Wolfsburg factory, which had been in ruins at the end of the war, was now humming with activity 24 hours a day. Workers assembled Beetles with Germanic precision, and the cars rolled off the production line in ever-increasing numbers. In 1955, Volkswagen produced its 1 millionth Beetle. By 1965, that number had grown to 10 million. The Beetle's success wasn't limited to Europe. In the United States, where large, powerful cars had traditionally dominated, the Beetle carved out an unexpected niche. American consumers, particularly young people and those looking for economical transportation, embraced the quirky German import. Volkswagen's clever advertising campaigns, which emphasized the car's simplicity, reliability, and economy, resonated with a generation that was beginning to question the excess of American consumer culture. The company's financial performance during these years reflected the Beetle's popularity. Profits soared, and Volkswagen reinvested heavily in expanding production capacity. New factories opened, not just in Germany but around the world. The company established manufacturing plants in Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, and other countries, creating a truly global presence. Volkswagen dealers opened in cities and towns across multiple continents, making the Beetle available to customers everywhere. Beyond the Beetle, Volkswagen also produced other vehicles based on the same basic platform. The Type 2, known variously as the microbus, combi, or transporter, became another iconic vehicle. With its boxy shape and rear-mounted engine derived from the Beetle, the Type 2 served as a commercial vehicle, family transporter, and eventually as a symbol of the counterculture movement. Hippies in America painted them with psychedelic designs and used them as mobile homes. Businesses relied on them for deliveries. Families used them for camping trips. The Karmann Ghia, a sports coupe built on the Beetle platform but with elegant Italian styling by Ghia, offered a more upscale option for Volkswagen customers. Though never as popular as the Beetle itself, the Karmann Ghia demonstrated that the basic Beetle design could be adapted for different market segments. By the mid-1960s, Volkswagen seemed invincible. The company employed hundreds of thousands of workers worldwide. Its vehicles were sold in virtually every country with paved roads. The Beetle had become the best-selling car in history, surpassing even the Ford Model T. Volkswagen's management could look at their achievements with pride and satisfaction. However, beneath this surface of success, warning signs were beginning to appear. The automotive world was changing, and Volkswagen's dependence on the Beetle was becoming a vulnerability rather than a strength. The storm clouds gather, warning signs in the late 1960s. The first hints of trouble emerged not from within Volkswagen itself, but from the broader automotive market. Throughout the 1960s, competing manufacturers had been developing new types of vehicles that challenged the Beetle's dominance. In Europe, manufacturers like Fiat, Renault, and British Motor Corporation were producing small, front-wheel drive cars with more modern designs. These vehicles offered similar economy and practicality to the Beetle, but with more contemporary styling and features. The Mini, introduced by British Motor Corporation in 1959, represented a particular threat. Designed by Alec Isagones, the Mini revolutionized small car design with its transverse engine, front-wheel drive, and incredibly space-efficient packaging. Despite its tiny dimensions, the Mini offered seating for 4 adults and surprising cargo space. It also proved to be fun to drive, with nimble handling that made it popular in motorsports. French manufacturers were also innovating. The Renault 4, introduced in 1961, offered a practical, modern alternative to traditional small cars. Like the Mini, it featured front-wheel drive and a hatchback design that made loading and unloading cargo much easier than the Beetle's sedan configuration. The Fiat 128, launched in 1969, took these concepts even further with its transverse engine and front-wheel drive layout, creating what would become the template for modern small cars. In the United States, while the Beetle remained popular in certain segments, American manufacturers and Japanese competitors were beginning to offer compelling alternatives. Toyota and Datsun, later Nissan, had established footholds in the American market with small, reliable, and increasingly sophisticated cars. These Japanese manufacturers were learning from the Beetle's success while incorporating more modern engineering and design. The automotive press began to comment on the Beetle's age. Publications that had praised the car's simplicity and reliability in the 1950s and early 1960s now pointed out its outdated engineering. The air-cooled, rear-mounted engine that had once been seen as clever and practical was now considered old-fashioned. The car's heating system, which relied on ducting warm air from the engine compartment, was notoriously inadequate in cold weather. The torsion bar suspension, while durable, didn't provide the ride comfort of more modern designs. Safety was becoming an increasingly important concern for consumers and regulators. The Beetle, with its front-mounted fuel tank and lack of a proper crumple zone at the front of the vehicle, was not well suited to meet evolving safety standards. In a frontal collision, the fuel tank's position created fire risks. The car's simple construction, which contributed to its low cost and reliability, didn't incorporate modern safety features like collapsible steering columns or reinforced passenger compartments. Environmental regulations were also beginning to change the automotive landscape. The Beetle's air-cooled engine, while simple and reliable, was not easily adapted to meet stricter emission standards that were being introduced in the United States and Europe. The engine's design made it difficult to incorporate catalytic converters and other emission control technologies. Within Volkswagen, management was aware of these challenges, but the company found itself in a difficult position. The Beetle was still selling in enormous numbers and generating substantial profits. Any decision to move away from the Beetle involved significant risks. What would replace it? Would customers accept a radically different vehicle from Volkswagen? Would a new model be as profitable as the Beetle? Volkswagen had made some attempts to develop new models. The Type 3, introduced in 1961, used a modified version of the Beetle's platform with a different body style and a flatter engine that allowed for more cargo space. The Type 4, launched in 1968, was a larger, more sophisticated vehicle that represented Volkswagen's attempt to move upmarket. However, neither of these models achieved anything close to the Beetle's success. They were seen as variations on the same old theme rather than genuine innovations. The company also acquired other automotive brands in an attempt to diversify. In 1964, Volkswagen purchased Auto Union from Daimler-Benz, gaining control of the Audi brand. This acquisition would later prove crucial to Volkswagen's survival, but in the late 1960s, Audi was still a minor player producing relatively small volumes. NSU, another German manufacturer, was merged with Auto Union in 1969 to create Audi NSU Auto Union AG. NSU brought some interesting technology, including the rotary engine, but also brought financial problems that would burden Volkswagen in the years to come. These acquisitions and the development of new models required significant investment at a time when Volkswagen's core business was beginning to show signs of strain. The company's management was caught between the need to innovate and the fear of jeopardizing the Beetle's ongoing success. The crisis deepens. Volkswagen in the early 1970s. As the 1970s began, Volkswagen's situation deteriorated rapidly. The warning signs of the late 1960s had become full-blown problems, and the company found itself facing the most serious crisis in its post-war history. The Beetle's sales began to decline sharply, particularly in key markets. In the United States, which had been one of Volkswagen's most profitable markets, sales dropped dramatically. American consumers were turning to Japanese manufacturers like Toyota and Datsun, which offered more modern designs with better features at competitive prices. The Honda Civic, introduced in 1972, represented exactly the kind of car that was taking customers away from Volkswagen. It was small and economical like the Beetle, but it featured modern engineering, front-wheel drive, and contemporary styling. In Europe, the situation was equally challenging. Domestic manufacturers had introduced a new generation of small, front-wheel drive cars that made the Beetle look increasingly antiquated. The Volkswagen Passat, introduced in 1973, and the Scirocco, launched the same year, were attempts to offer more modern vehicles, but they were positioned as upscale models rather than replacements for the Beetle. The company still lacked a direct successor to its iconic model that could appeal to the mass market. The oil crisis of 1973 further complicated matters. When the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries proclaimed an oil embargo in October 1973, the price of gasoline skyrocketed around the world. Long lines formed at gas stations, and consumers became acutely aware of fuel economy. While the Beetle had always been marketed as an economical car, newer models from competitors offered better fuel efficiency with more modern technology. Financially, Volkswagen's situation became dire. The company's profits evaporated as sales declined. Fixed costs remained high because of the company's extensive manufacturing infrastructure and large workforce. Volkswagen had invested heavily in production capacity during the boom years, and now that capacity was underutilized. Factories designed to produce millions of Beetles annually were running below capacity, driving up the per-unit cost of each vehicle produced. The financial losses mounted at an alarming rate. In 1973 and 1974, Volkswagen recorded losses totaling approximately 800 million Deutschmarks, an enormous sum that threatened the company's very survival. This was particularly shocking for a company that had been consistently profitable for decades. Investors, employees, and suppliers all began to question whether Volkswagen could recover. The German government, which still held a significant stake in Volkswagen, watched the situation with growing concern. Volkswagen was not just any company. It was a symbol of German industrial success and a major employer. The company's workforce numbered in the hundreds of thousands, and many smaller suppliers and businesses depended on Volkswagen for their livelihood. The potential collapse of Volkswagen would have devastating effects on the German economy. Labor relations became strained as the company faced the prospect of layoffs and production cuts. Volkswagen's workers, represented by powerful German labor unions, had enjoyed decades of job security and rising wages. Now, management was telling them that sacrifices would be necessary. The company implemented hiring freezes, reduced overtime, and began considering more drastic measures like temporary shutdowns and layoffs. Morale within the company sank. Employees who had taken pride in working for a successful, growing company now faced uncertainty about their futures. The legendary efficiency and quality of Volkswagen's production began to slip as worried workers struggled to maintain focus. Some of the company's best engineers and managers left for competitors, taking valuable knowledge and experience with them. Volkswagen's dealer network also suffered. Dealers who had grown wealthy selling Beetles found their showrooms empty of customers. Many dealers faced bankruptcy themselves, unable to move their inventory of vehicles that consumers no longer wanted. The company's relationship with its dealer network, which had been one of its strengths, became a source of conflict as dealers demanded better products and more support from the factory. Suppliers, who had built their businesses around producing parts for Volkswagen, faced similar pressures. Some went bankrupt when Volkswagen cut orders. Others diversified by seeking business with other manufacturers. The entire ecosystem that had grown up around Volkswagen's success was under threat. The company's reputation suffered internationally. Volkswagen had built its brand on reliability, quality, and value. Now, the automotive press and consumers questioned whether Volkswagen could adapt to changing times. The company that had seemed so invincible just a few years earlier was now seen as a dinosaur, unable or unwilling to evolve. Management struggled to respond effectively to the crisis. The company's leadership had grown up in the Beetle era and found it difficult to imagine Volkswagen without its iconic model. There was a reluctance to fully commit to a new direction, a hope that perhaps the Beetle sales would recover, that the current troubles were merely a temporary setback rather than a fundamental shift in the market. This hesitation proved costly. While Volkswagen debated and delayed, competitors continued to innovate and capture market share. Every month that passed with declining sales and mounting losses made the company's situation more precarious. A bold plan: the development of the Golf. Fortunately for Volkswagen, not everyone in the company was paralyzed by the crisis. A group of engineers and designers, led by technical director Rudolf Lading, had been working on a project that would ultimately save the company. the development of a completely new small car that would eventually become the Volkswagen Golf. Lading had joined Volkswagen from Auto Union/Audi and brought a fresh perspective to the company. Unlike many Volkswagen executives who had devoted their entire careers to the Beetle, Lading had experience with different types of vehicles and understood that Volkswagen needed to make a radical break with its past. He recognized that the company's survival depended on developing a modern, front-wheel drive car that could compete with the best offerings from European, Japanese, and American manufacturers. The project to develop this new car began in earnest in the early 1970s, even as Volkswagen's financial situation was deteriorating. It was a calculated risk. The company was investing millions of Deutschmarks in development and tooling at a time when it could barely afford to keep its existing operations running. However, Lading and his team understood that without a successful new model, Volkswagen had no future. The design philosophy for the new car represented a complete departure from the Beetle. Where the Beetle had been round and organic, the new car would be angular and modern. Where the Beetle had used a rear-mounted, air-cooled engine, the new car would have a front-mounted, water-cooled engine driving the front wheels. Where the Beetle had been evolutionary and conservative, the new car would be revolutionary and progressive. Giorgetto Giugiaro, the renowned Italian designer, was commissioned to create the body design. Giugiaro, working through his company Italdesign, had already established a reputation as one of the automotive world's most talented designers. He approached the Volkswagen project with fresh eyes, unburdened by the company's history with the Beetle. Giugiaro's design for what would become the Golf was revolutionary in its simplicity and functionality. The car featured a distinctive wedge-shaped profile with sharp, clean lines. The front was dominated by a simple grille and rectangular headlights. The rear featured a large hatchback that provided excellent access to the cargo area, a practical feature that the Beetle had lacked. The interior design was equally thoughtful. Giugiaro created a spacious cabin that could comfortably seat 4 adults despite the car's compact exterior dimensions. The dashboard was clean and functional, with controls logically arranged for easy access. Visibility was excellent in all directions, making the car easy to drive in city traffic. The Golf's dimensions were carefully calculated to maximize interior space while keeping the overall footprint small enough for urban driving and parking. At 3.7 meters long and 1.6 meters wide, the Golf was actually slightly smaller than the Beetle, yet it offered significantly more passenger and cargo space thanks to its more efficient packaging. The engineering team, meanwhile, was working on the mechanical components. They adapted a transverse-mounted 4-cylinder engine from Audi, positioning it at the front of the car and using it to drive the front wheels. This layout, now commonplace but relatively novel for Volkswagen at the time, offered numerous advantages. It eliminated the Beetle's problematic heating system, improved handling and stability, and created more space for passengers and luggage. The suspension system used McPherson struts at the front and a torsion beam rear axle, a simple, reliable, and cost-effective setup that provided good ride quality and handling. The Golf was designed from the start to be fun to drive while remaining practical and comfortable for daily use. Safety was a major consideration in the Golf's design. The car featured a strong passenger compartment with crumple zones at the front and rear to absorb impact energy in a collision. The fuel tank was positioned safely above the rear axle, away from potential impact zones. These features represented a significant improvement over the Beetle's safety characteristics. As the development progressed, the team conducted extensive testing. Prototypes were driven hundreds of thousands of kilometers in all conditions, from the Arctic cold of Scandinavia to the desert heat of Arizona, from the smooth highways of Germany to the rough roads of Spain. The engineers refined and improved every aspect of the car based on this testing. The manufacturing process was also carefully planned. Volkswagen's factories would need to be completely retooled to produce the Golf, requiring massive investments in new equipment and worker training. The company's management made the difficult decision to commit to these investments despite the financial crisis, understanding that there was no alternative if Volkswagen was to survive. The launch. May 1974. In May 1974, Volkswagen officially unveiled the Golf to the public. The launch took place against a backdrop of continued financial difficulties for the company. The 800 million Deutschmark loss was weighing heavily on everyone's minds. The press and public wondered whether this new car could possibly save Volkswagen from collapse. The initial reaction was mixed. Some observers praised the Golf's modern design and practical features. Automotive journalists who drove pre-production models generally gave positive reviews, noting the car's solid build quality, good handling, and spacious interior. The hatchback design was particularly praised for its practicality. However, there was also skepticism. Many people had an emotional attachment to the Beetle and viewed the Golf with suspicion. How could this angular, conventional-looking car replace the beloved Bug? Volkswagen dealers reported that some longtime customers came into showrooms, looked at the Golf, and left without placing orders, saying they would wait for the next Beetle. The Golf's styling, while modern, was not universally appreciated. Giugiaro's clean, geometric design was quite different from the flowing curves that characterized many cars of the era. Some critics found it boxy and unexciting. The car's appearance would later be recognized as trend-setting, but in 1974, it struck some observers as austere. Volkswagen's marketing team faced the challenge of positioning the Golf as both a worthy successor to the Beetle and a completely new type of car. They emphasized the Golf's practicality, quality, and modern engineering while trying to transfer some of the Beetle's emotional appeal to the new model. Early advertising campaigns stressed the Golf's German engineering and build quality, hoping to leverage Volkswagen's reputation for producing durable, reliable vehicles. Pricing was crucial. The Golf needed to be affordable enough to appeal to the mass-market customers who had bought Beetles, but it also needed to be priced high enough to reflect its more sophisticated engineering and to help Volkswagen recover financially. The company set the initial price at a level slightly higher than the Beetles, positioning the Golf as a step up rather than a direct replacement. Initial sales were modest. In the first few months after launch, the Golf did not fly off showroom floors. Some within Volkswagen began to panic, wondering if the company had made a terrible mistake. The financial losses continued to mount, and there was talk of potential bankruptcy if the Golf failed to gain traction in the market. The turning point: Golf gains momentum. However, as more Golfs reached customers and word of mouth spread, perceptions began to change. Owners discovered that the Golf was an excellent car for daily driving. It was easy to park in crowded cities, yet comfortable enough for longer trips. The hatchback made loading groceries, luggage, or sports equipment much easier than the Beetle's trunk. The heating and ventilation systems actually worked properly, providing comfort in all weather conditions. The Golf's quality and build quality impressed customers. Despite being less expensive than many competitors, the Golf felt solid and well-engineered. Doors closed with a satisfying thunk. Controls operated with precision. Materials, while not luxurious, seemed durable and appropriate. This quality matched Volkswagen's reputation and helped overcome initial skepticism. Performance was also a pleasant surprise for many buyers. While the basic Golf models were not sports cars, they were peppy and fun to drive. The front-wheel drive layout and well-tuned suspension provided good handling and grip. The car felt stable and sure-footed in corners. For customers coming from Beetles, which could be unpredictable in crosswinds and tended to oversteer, the Golf's handling was a revelation. Fuel economy proved excellent, which was crucial given the ongoing oil crisis. The Golf's modern, efficient engine delivered better mileage than most competitors while providing adequate power. As gasoline prices remained high throughout the mid-1970s, this fuel efficiency became an increasingly important selling point. By late 1974 and early 1975, Golf sales began to accelerate. What started as a trickle became a steady stream and then a flood. Volkswagen's factories ramped up production to meet growing demand. Workers who had feared for their jobs just months earlier found themselves working overtime to build enough Golfs to satisfy dealers and customers. The breakthrough came in multiple markets simultaneously. In Germany, the Golf quickly became one of the best-selling cars. German customers appreciated the car's quality, practicality, and domestic origin. In other European countries, the Golf competed successfully against models from local manufacturers. Even in the United Kingdom, where buyers traditionally preferred British-made cars, the Golf found a receptive audience. Critically, the Golf succeeded in replacing Beetle sales in markets where the older car's popularity had collapsed. In the United States, while the Golf never achieved the Beetle's peak sales numbers, it stabilized Volkswagen's position and brought customers back to the brand. The Golf appealed to a slightly more upscale buyer than the Beetle had: younger professionals and educated consumers who appreciated European engineering and design. The automotive press's initial lukewarm reception turned to enthusiasm as journalists spent more time with the car. Road tests praised the Golf's all-around competence and lack of significant weaknesses. Awards and accolades followed. The Golf appeared on numerous Car of the Year lists and won several prestigious awards. This positive press helped build momentum and legitimacy for the model. The GTI, a masterstroke. In 1976, Volkswagen introduced a variant that would become legendary, the Golf GTI. This high-performance version of the Golf created an entirely new category of vehicle, the hot hatch, and became a cultural icon in its own right. The GTI featured a fuel-injected version of the Golf's engine producing 110 horsepower, sport suspension, upgraded brakes, and distinctive styling touches including a red stripe across the grille, golf ball shift knob, and tartan plaid seats. It could accelerate from 0 to 100 km per hour in less than 9 seconds and reach a top speed of around 180 km per hour. Impressive performance for a small, practical car. What made the GTI special was its combination of everyday usability with genuine sports car performance. You could use it to commute to work, carry groceries, and take the family on vacation, but it was also genuinely fun to drive on winding roads. This versatility appealed to enthusiasts who couldn't afford or didn't want a dedicated sports car. The GTI's success exceeded Volkswagen's modest expectations. The company had initially planned to build just 5,000 GTIs, thinking it would be a niche product. Instead, it became a phenomenon. Young people in particular embraced the GTI, and it developed a devoted following. Waiting lists grew as demand far exceeded supply. The GTI's influence extended beyond sales numbers. It demonstrated that practical family cars could also be exciting and fun to drive. Other manufacturers rushed to create their own hot hatch models, spawning a new segment that continues to this day. The GTI became synonymous with affordable performance and helped establish Volkswagen's sporty credentials. For Volkswagen's bottom line, the GTI was particularly valuable because it commanded a significant price premium over regular Golf models while using many of the same components. This improved the company's profit margins and helped offset the financial losses of the early 1970s. Financial recovery. As Golf sales surged in the mid to late 1970s, Volkswagen's financial situation improved dramatically. The company's return to profitability was remarkably swift. By 1975, just 1 year after the Golf's introduction, Volkswagen was back in the black. The 800 million Deutschmark loss that had threatened the company's existence became a memory as profits returned and then grew. The Golf's success had multiple positive effects on Volkswagen's finances. First and most obviously, selling large numbers of cars at healthy profit margins generated revenue and profit. The Golf's pricing strategy, which positioned it as a premium product within the small car segment, allowed Volkswagen to maintain good margins even in competitive markets. Second, the Golf's popularity allowed Volkswagen to achieve economies of scale. The company's factories, which had been running far below capacity during the crisis, were now operating at full capacity and beyond. This improved efficiency dramatically reduced per-unit costs. Suppliers, who had struggled when Volkswagen's orders declined, now benefited from large, steady orders that allowed them to optimize their own operations and offer better pricing. Third, the Golf's success restored confidence among investors, lenders, and other stakeholders. Banks that had been nervous about Volkswagen's debt were reassured by the company's return to profitability and were willing to provide financing for further investments. The company's stock price recovered, rewarding shareholders who had held on through the crisis years. Fourth, the Golf created a platform for other profitable vehicles. The same basic chassis, suspension, and drivetrain could be used for different models, spreading development costs across multiple product lines. The Scirocco Sport Coupe, Jetta sedan, and later the Caddy pickup all shared mechanical components with the Golf, reducing costs while offering customers variety. The Golf also helped Volkswagen in less tangible but equally important ways. It restored the company's reputation for innovation and quality. Customers, dealers, and employees regained confidence in the brand. The Golf proved that Volkswagen could adapt and evolve, that it was not a one-car company forever locked to the Beetle's aging design. By the end of the 1970s, Volkswagen was not just surviving but thriving. The company had weathered the existential crisis of the early part of the decade and emerged stronger. Profits were strong and growing. Market share was increasing in key markets. New models were in development. The future, which had seemed so uncertain just a few years earlier, now looked bright. Long-term impact and legacy. The Golf's importance to Volkswagen extended far beyond the immediate financial rescue of the 1970s. It became the foundation for the company's strategy for decades to come and established patterns that continue to shape Volkswagen today. First and foremost, the Golf became Volkswagen's new core model, replacing the Beetle as the heart of the company's product lineup. Generation after generation of Golf has been developed, each improving on its predecessor while maintaining the basic character that made the original successful. As of 2025, the Golf is in its 8th generation, with over 37 million units sold worldwide since 1974. This makes it one of the best-selling cars of all time and Volkswagen's most important model. The Golf established Volkswagen's design language and engineering philosophy for decades. The clean, functional styling, the emphasis on build quality and solidity, the focus on practical features and user-friendly design, all of these characteristics that define the Golf came to define Volkswagen as a brand. Other Volkswagen models followed similar principles, creating a coherent brand identity. The platform strategy that began with the Golf became central to Volkswagen's business model. By sharing components, platforms, and technology across multiple models and even multiple brands within the Volkswagen Group, the company achieved efficiencies that allowed it to compete with larger rivals. This strategy has been refined and expanded over the decades, but traces its roots to the original Golf platform. The Golf's success also validated Volkswagen's acquisition of Audi. The Golf used technology and components derived from Audi models, and the success of this engineering cross-pollination encouraged further integration between Volkswagen and Audi. Today, the Volkswagen Group is one of the world's largest automotive conglomerates, encompassing not just Volkswagen and Audi but also Porsche, Bentley, Lamborghini, Seat, Skoda, and other brands. This empire might not exist if the Golf had failed and Volkswagen had collapsed in the 1970s. The Golf created and defined the compact hatchback segment in many markets. Before the Golf, hatchbacks were often seen as cheap, basic transportation. The Golf demonstrated that a hatchback could be stylish, well-built, and desirable. It elevated the entire segment and influenced how other manufacturers approached compact car design. Today, the compact hatchback is one of the most important segments in the global automotive market, and the Golf remains the benchmark against which competitors are measured. The GTI's creation of the hot hatch segment had lasting effects not just for Volkswagen but for the entire automotive industry. It proved that performance and practicality were not mutually exclusive and opened up new markets for manufacturers. Volkswagen continued to exploit this segment with successive generations of the Golf GTI and performance versions of other models. Competitors from Ford, Honda, Renault, Peugeot, and others introduced their own hot hatches, creating a vibrant and competitive segment that continues to attract enthusiasts. The Golf's influence on automotive design was profound. Giugiaro's clean, geometric styling influenced a generation of car designs. The Golf's proportions, with its short overhangs, upright greenhouse, and efficient packaging, became a template that other manufacturers studied and emulated. While car design has evolved since 1974, many of the principles established by the Golf remain relevant. Cultural impact. Beyond its commercial and engineering significance, the Golf became a cultural phenomenon in many countries, much as the Beetle had been before it. However, while the Beetle was often associated with counterculture and nonconformity, the Golf represented something different: practical modernity, middle-class aspiration, and understated quality. In Germany, the Golf became ubiquitous. It was the car of choice for everyone from students to professionals to retirees. This broad appeal across age groups and social classes was remarkable and reflected the Golf's all-around competence. The phrase, German quality, became associated with the Golf, reinforcing positive stereotypes about German engineering and manufacturing. In the United Kingdom, the Golf, marketed as the Rabbit in some markets, including initially in the United States, became highly popular among educated, professional buyers. It developed a reputation as a thinking person's car, practical and sensible but also well-engineered and enjoyable to drive. This image helped Volkswagen establish a premium positioning in the UK market. The Golf GTI developed its own distinct cultural identity, particularly among younger buyers and automotive enthusiasts. GTI owners formed clubs, attended meetings and track days, and modified their cars. The GTI became a symbol of affordable performance and driving enjoyment. Even today, Decades later, early GTI models are sought after by collectors and enthusiasts. In popular culture, the Golf appeared in films, television shows, and music. Unlike the Beetle, which often played comic or quirky roles, the Golf typically represented normalcy and practicality. It was the car that ordinary protagonists drove. This widespread presence in media reinforced the Golf's position as a default choice, the car that people bought when they wanted reliable, quality transportation without making a statement. The Golf's longevity meant that multiple generations of buyers encountered it at formative moments in their lives. Many people learned to drive in a Golf, or bought their first new car as a Golf, or drove their children to school in a Golf. This created strong emotional bonds and brand loyalty that benefited Volkswagen for decades. Conclusion: lessons from the Golf story. The story of how the Golf saved Volkswagen offers several important lessons that extend beyond the automotive industry. First, it demonstrates the dangers of over-reliance on a single successful product. Volkswagen's dependence on the Beetle, while understandable given that car's incredible success, left the company vulnerable when market conditions changed. The company's reluctance to move on from the Beetle nearly proved fatal. Organizations need to innovate and evolve even when their current products are successful. Second, the Golf story shows the importance of bold decision-making in crisis situations. Rudolf Lading and other leaders at Volkswagen made the courageous decision to invest heavily in developing the Golf even as the company was losing hundreds of millions of Deutschmarks. This decision involved significant risk. If the Golf had failed, Volkswagen would likely have collapsed entirely. However, half measures would not have solved Volkswagen's problems. Only a comprehensive, well-executed new product could save the company. Third, the Golf's success resulted from getting the fundamentals right. It was not the most exciting car ever made, nor the most innovative, nor the best performing in any single category. What made it successful was doing everything well: design, engineering, manufacturing quality, pricing, and marketing all came together effectively. This all-around competence proved more valuable than excellence in one area combined with weaknesses in others. Fourth, the Golf story illustrates the importance of understanding changing customer needs and market trends. Volkswagen's crisis resulted partly from failing to recognize that customers wanted more modern features, better safety, and improved comfort. Once the company understood what the market wanted and delivered it effectively, success followed. Fifth, timing matters. The Golf launched just as the oil crisis was making fuel efficiency a top priority for consumers. Its modern, efficient design was perfectly suited to the moment. Some of this was luck, but some reflected Volkswagen's understanding of where the market was heading. Finally, the Golf story shows that even companies facing existential crises can recover if they make the right decisions. Volkswagen's situation in 1973–74 was dire. The company was losing money at an alarming rate, its products were outdated, and competitors were gaining ground. Yet within just a few years, Volkswagen had not only survived but had returned to profitability and growth. This turnaround was possible because the company developed a product that met customer needs better than competitors' offerings. Today, Volkswagen faces new challenges. The transition to electric vehicles represents a disruption as significant as the shift from rear-engine to front-engine, front-wheel drive cars that occurred in the 1970s. Competition is intense, with traditional manufacturers and new entrants like Tesla vying for market share. Regulatory requirements around emissions and safety are becoming ever more stringent. However, Volkswagen's experience with the Golf provides a template for how to navigate such challenges. The company has committed significant resources to developing electric vehicles, with the ID series representing its vision for electric mobility. Whether these new models will be as successful as the Golf was in saving Volkswagen from its 1970s crisis remains to be seen, but the company's willingness to embrace radical change bodes well for its future. The Golf itself continues to play an important role in Volkswagen's lineup. Even as the company transitions to electric vehicles, new generations of Golf continue to be developed and sold. The model that saved Volkswagen from bankruptcy in the 1970s remains relevant and important more than 50 years later, a testament to the fundamental rightness of the original concept and the skill with which successive generations have evolved the design while maintaining its core character. The Golf across generations, evolution and adaptation. The success of the original Golf, known as the Golf Mk1 or Golf I, created both an opportunity and a challenge for Volkswagen. The opportunity was clear. The company had a winning formula that could be refined and improved. The challenge was equally obvious. How do you replace a highly successful product without losing what made it successful in the first place? Volkswagen's approach to this challenge has been evolutionary rather than revolutionary. Each new generation of Golf has improved on its predecessor while maintaining the basic character and proportions that made the original successful. This strategy has allowed Volkswagen to keep the Golf relevant across 5 decades of dramatic changes in automotive technology and customer expectations. The Golf Mk2, introduced in 1983, retained the original's basic architecture while growing slightly in all dimensions. It offered more interior space, improved refinement, and better equipment levels while maintaining the practical hatchback format. The styling, while clearly related to the original, was softer and more rounded, reflecting changing design trends. The Mk2 continued the original success, selling over 6 million units during its production run. The Golf Mk3, launched in 1991, represented a more significant departure. It was substantially larger than its predecessors and featured more curved, aerodynamic styling. New features included available all-wheel drive, the Golf Synchro, a convertible variant, and eventually a range of diesel engines that would become increasingly important to Volkswagen's success in Europe. The Mk3 also introduced the Golf to new markets, including expanding production facilities outside Europe. With the Golf Mk4, introduced in 1997, Volkswagen emphasized quality and refinement. The interior featured higher quality materials and better fit and finish than previous generations. The car became heavier and more expensive, reflecting Volkswagen's strategy of positioning itself as a premium mass-market brand. While some enthusiasts criticized the Mk4 for straying too far from the Golf's simple, lightweight roots, it was commercially successful and strengthened Volkswagen's premium image. The Golf Mk5, launched in 2003, marked a return to sharper, more dynamic styling and driving characteristics. Volkswagen had recognized that the Mk4 had perhaps gone too far in the direction of comfort and refinement at the expense of driving enjoyment. The Mk5 used Volkswagen's new PQ35 platform, which would underpin numerous models across the Volkswagen Group. The GTI version of the Mk5 was particularly well received, recapturing the sporting spirit of the original GTI. The Golf Mk6, introduced in 2008, was essentially a heavily revised version of the Mk5 rather than an entirely new design. It featured updated styling, improved efficiency, and new technology, but it rode on the same basic platform as its predecessor. This approach allowed Volkswagen to continue improving the Golf while focusing development resources on other priorities, including the expansion of the company's model range and preparation for stricter emissions regulations. The Golf Mk7, launched in 2012, represented a more significant step forward. It used Volkswagen's new MQB, modular Querbarkassen, or modular transverse matrix, platform, which would become the foundation for vehicles across multiple brands within the Volkswagen Group. The Mk7 was lighter than the Mk6 despite being slightly larger, thanks to extensive use of high-strength steel and other lightweight materials. It offered dramatically improved fuel efficiency and reduced emissions while maintaining strong performance. The Mk7 also introduced a wide range of new technologies. These included advanced driver assistance systems, comprehensive connectivity features, and even a plug-in hybrid variant called the Golf GTE. These additions reflected the changing nature of the automotive industry, where software and electronics were becoming as important as mechanical engineering. The current Golf Mk8, introduced in 2019, takes this technological evolution even further. The interior is dominated by digital displays and touch-sensitive controls, representing a radical departure from the tactile buttons and switches of previous generations. This has proven controversial among some Golf traditionalists, who prefer the simple, intuitive controls of earlier models. However, Volkswagen argues that the Mk8's advanced technology is necessary to keep the Golf competitive in a market where customers expect smartphone-like interfaces and advanced connectivity. Throughout these 8 generations, certain core characteristics have remained constant. Every Golf has been a compact hatchback with front-wheel drive, or optionally all-wheel drive in some versions. Every Golf has prioritized practicality, build quality, and all-around competence over specialization in any single area. Every Golf has been positioned as a premium offering within the mass-market segment, priced above the cheapest competitors but still accessible to middle-class buyers. This consistency has helped maintain the Golf's identity and customer loyalty across decades. Buyers know what to expect from a Golf, and that predictability, combined with steady improvement in technology, efficiency, and features, has kept customers coming back generation after generation. The Golf's global reach. While the Golf was initially designed primarily for European markets, it has achieved global success over its 5-decade history. However, its popularity and positioning have varied significantly by region, reflecting different market conditions and customer preferences. In Europe, the Golf has remained one of the best-selling cars since its introduction. It has regularly topped sales charts in Germany, where it is seen as a quintessentially German product representing the country's engineering and manufacturing prowess. In other European countries, the Golf competes successfully against domestic offerings, often winning on quality perception and residual values even when priced higher than competitors. The Golf's success in Europe has been reinforced by a strong lineup of variants catering to different customer needs. The standard Golf appeals to buyers seeking practical, reliable transportation. The Golf GTI attracts enthusiasts looking for performance. The Golf GTD offers diesel power for those prioritizing fuel economy and range. The Golf GTE provides a plug-in hybrid option for environmentally conscious buyers. The Golf R delivers all-wheel drive and high performance. The Golf variant, Wagon, offers increased cargo capacity. This range of options allows Volkswagen to capture sales across multiple segments with a single basic platform. In the United States, the Golf's history has been more complicated. It was initially sold as the Rabbit when launched in 1975, and while it achieved respectable sales, it never reached the iconic status that the Beetle had enjoyed. American buyers, with their traditional preference for larger vehicles, often found the Golf too small and expensive compared to domestic offerings. The car did find a loyal following among educated urban buyers who appreciated European engineering and design, but it remained a niche product rather than a mass-market success. Volkswagen even attempted to manufacture the Golf/Rabbit in the United States, opening a factory in Pennsylvania in 1978. This was intended to reduce costs and better serve the American market, but the plant struggled with quality issues and labor problems. The American-built cars developed a reputation for being inferior to German-built models, hurting the brand's image. Volkswagen eventually closed the Pennsylvania plant in 1988, though it would later open a different factory in Tennessee for other models. The GTI found a more enthusiastic reception in the United States than the standard Golf. American driving enthusiasts appreciated the GTI's combination of performance and practicality, and it developed a devoted following. The GTI became Volkswagen's best-selling Golf variant in the U.S. market, to the point where Volkswagen eventually decided to sell only the GTI and Golf R in the United States, dropping the standard Golf from the American market after the MK7 generation. In China, which has become the world's largest automotive market, the Golf has achieved substantial success, though with some unique characteristics. Chinese buyers have shown a strong preference for sedans over hatchbacks, leading Volkswagen to offer sedan variants of the Golf platform specifically for the Chinese market. The Golf itself is sold in China and appeals to younger, more internationally minded buyers, but sedan variants like the Levita, essentially a Golf with a trunk, have achieved much higher sales volumes. Volkswagen's deep investment in China, including numerous joint ventures and local production facilities, has made the Chinese market crucial to the company's global success. The Golf platform underpins many of the vehicles Volkswagen sells in China, demonstrating the model's flexibility and adaptability to different market preferences. In Latin America, Africa, and other developing markets, the Golf has had varying levels of success. In some cases, Volkswagen has produced locally manufactured versions adapted to local market conditions and price points. In Brazil, for example, Volkswagen has manufactured versions of the Golf with simplified specifications and lower prices to compete effectively against local competitors. These adaptations demonstrate how the Golf's basic architecture can be modified to meet different market requirements while maintaining the essential Golf character. Competition and the Golf's market position. The Golf's success inevitably attracted competitors seeking to capture a share of the lucrative compact hatchback market. Over the decades since 1974, virtually every major automotive manufacturer has introduced models designed to compete with the Golf, with varying degrees of success. In Europe, the Golf's primary competitors have included the Ford Focus, Opel/Vauxhall Astra, Peugeot 308, Renault Megane, and various other models from European manufacturers. Each of these has achieved significant sales in their home markets and elsewhere, but none has matched the Golf's consistent success across multiple European countries and decades. The Golf's reputation for quality, residual values, and all-around competence has kept it at or near the top of the segment despite often being priced higher than competitors. The Ford Focus deserves particular mention as perhaps the Golf's most successful challenger. Introduced in 1998, the Focus was specifically designed to compete with the Golf and other European compact hatchbacks. Ford invested heavily in the Focus's chassis development and driving dynamics, creating a car that many automotive journalists praised as more fun to drive than the Golf. The Focus achieved substantial sales in Europe and became Ford's best-selling model globally. However, even the Focus has not dislodged the Golf from its leadership position in the European market. Japanese manufacturers, particularly Toyota and Honda, have also competed in this segment with models like the Toyota Corolla, in its hatchback form, and Honda Civic. These Japanese competitors have emphasized reliability and value, often undercutting the Golf on price while offering generous equipment levels. In some markets, particularly outside Europe, Japanese competitors have outsold the Golf. However, in Europe itself, the Golf has generally maintained an advantage, partly due to its perceived quality advantage and partly due to brand loyalty and local manufacturing. Korean manufacturers Hyundai and Kia have emerged as increasingly credible competitors in recent years. Models like the Hyundai i30 and Kia Ceed are clearly designed to compete directly with the Golf, offering similar sizes and features at lower prices. These Korean competitors have improved dramatically in quality and design, challenging Volkswagen's traditional advantages. While they haven't overtaken the Golf in sales, they have captured significant market share and forced Volkswagen to sharpen its pricing and value proposition. In the premium compact segment, the Audi A3, which shares mechanical components with the Golf thanks to both brands being part of the Volkswagen Group, offers a more luxurious alternative. The A3's success has actually benefited Volkswagen by allowing the company to capture sales at different price points while sharing development and manufacturing costs. This strategy of offering multiple brands targeting different segments has become central to Volkswagen Group's business model. The Golf GTI created its own competitive subsegment of high-performance compact hatchbacks. Competitors like the Ford Focus ST and RS, Renault Megane RS, Honda Civic Type R, and Peugeot 308 GTI have all offered alternatives to the GTI. Some of these competitors have offered higher performance or more aggressive styling, but the GTI has maintained its position as the segment benchmark through a combination of performance, refinement, and everyday usability. The GTI's reputation and heritage have proven difficult for competitors to match, even when their products have been objectively competitive or superior in specific areas. Challenges and controversies. While the Golf's overall story is one of success, the model has not been without challenges and controversies over its 50-year history. These issues have tested Volkswagen's ability to maintain the Golf's reputation and market position. The Dieselgate scandal that began in 2015 significantly impacted Volkswagen and the Golf. It was revealed that Volkswagen had installed software in diesel engines that could detect when vehicles were being tested for emissions and temporarily reduce emissions to pass the tests. In normal driving, these vehicles emitted pollutants far in excess of legal limits. This deception affected millions of Volkswagen Group vehicles worldwide, including diesel-powered Golfs. The scandal's consequences were severe. Volkswagen faced billions of dollars in fines, legal costs, and vehicle buybacks. The company's reputation suffered enormously, particularly for honesty and integrity, qualities that had been central to the brand's image. Sales declined in many markets as customers lost trust in the brand. Executives faced criminal charges, and the company underwent significant leadership changes. For the Golf specifically, the scandal was particularly damaging because diesel engines had been a key part of the model's appeal in Europe. The Golf TDI diesel variants offered excellent fuel economy and driving range while maintaining strong performance. They were popular with customers who drove long distances and wanted to minimize fuel stops. The scandal tainted these models and led many customers to question whether diesel was a viable long-term choice. Volkswagen's response to the scandal included a massive push toward electrification. The company committed to investing billions in electric vehicle development and announced plans to phase out internal combustion engines over time. This strategic shift has implications for the Golf's future, as purely electric vehicles require completely different platforms and powertrains. While Volkswagen has introduced an electric Golf variant, the e-Golf, the company's main electric vehicle push has focused on the new ID. series built on a dedicated electric platform rather than adapted from the Golf. Quality issues have periodically affected the Golf's reputation. The Mk4 generation, in particular, faced criticism for reliability problems, particularly with its electronics and certain engine variants. These issues damaged Volkswagen's carefully cultivated reputation for quality and reliability. While subsequent generations improved, the company had to work hard to rebuild trust with customers and automotive journalists. The Golf Mk8's shift toward touch-sensitive controls and reduced physical buttons has proven controversial. Many customers and reviewers have criticized the new interface as less intuitive and more distracting than traditional controls. The touch-sensitive climate controls, in particular, have been criticized for requiring drivers to look at the screen rather than being able to adjust settings by feel. This criticism has been particularly pointed because ease of use and logical ergonomics had been Golf's strengths for decades. Volkswagen has faced criticism for the Golf's increasing size and weight with each generation. Enthusiasts who loved the original Golf's lightweight and nimble handling have lamented the trend toward larger, heavier vehicles with each successive generation. The Mk1 Golf weighed around 790 kilograms. The Mk8 weighs over 1,200 kilograms despite extensive use of lightweight materials. This weight gain, driven by safety regulations, additional equipment, and customer demands for more space and features, has changed the Golf's character in ways that not all enthusiasts appreciate. Pricing has also become a contentious issue. The Golf has become significantly more expensive relative to competitors over time, particularly in markets like the United States. While Volkswagen argues that the Golf's quality and features justify premium pricing, value-conscious customers have increasingly turned to competitors offering similar capabilities at lower prices. This has contributed to declining Golf sales in some markets. The Golf's role in Volkswagen's electric future. As the automotive industry undergoes a fundamental transformation toward electric propulsion, the Golf's role in Volkswagen's future is evolving. The company faces a strategic question. Should the Golf transition to become an electric vehicle, or should Volkswagen's electric offerings be entirely separate from its combustion engine heritage? Volkswagen has pursued both approaches simultaneously. The e-Golf, introduced in 2014 as part of the Mk7 generation, offered an all-electric version of the standard Golf. It used the same basic platform and body as the combustion engine Golf, but with an electric motor and battery pack. The e-Golf provided a familiar Golf experience with zero emissions, appealing to customers who wanted electric propulsion in a package they knew and trusted. However, the e-Golf was limited by its platform. Because the Golf was designed primarily for internal combustion engines, adapting it for electric propulsion involved compromises. The battery pack had to fit within a platform designed for a fuel tank, exhaust system, and transmission, limiting capacity. Range was consequently shorter than dedicated electric vehicles. Interior space was slightly compromised by the battery placement. Charging speeds were slower than ideal. Recognizing these limitations, Volkswagen developed the MEB, Modular Antriebsbaukasten, or Modular Electric Drive Matrix, platform specifically for electric vehicles. This platform places the batteries flat under the floor, optimizing interior space and weight distribution. It allows for larger battery capacities, longer ranges, and faster charging than conversions of combustion engine platforms. The ID.3, Volkswagen's first vehicle built on the MEB platform, was explicitly positioned as the spiritual successor to the Beetle and Golf, the people's car for the electric age. The ID.3 and Golf are similar in size and intended purpose, creating potential overlap in Volkswagen's lineup. This raises questions about the Golf's long-term future. Will Volkswagen maintain both models, with the Golf serving customers who still prefer combustion engines or hybrid powertrains while the ID.3 serves those who want pure electric propulsion? Or will the Golf name eventually migrate to the electric platform, with the ID.3 essentially becoming the next-generation Golf? Volkswagen has not definitively answered these questions, and its strategy may differ by market. In Europe, where electric vehicle adoption is progressing rapidly driven by regulations and infrastructure development, Volkswagen may eventually phase out combustion engine Golfs in favor of the ID family. In markets where electric vehicle adoption is slower, the traditional Golf may continue for years or even decades. The Golf Mk8 is available with a range of powertrains including gasoline, diesel, mild hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and fully electric, the e-Golf variant. This diversity reflects the current transitional moment in the automotive industry, where different customers have different preferences and requirements. Some want the longest possible range and don't mind stopping for fuel. They choose gasoline or diesel. Others want to minimize fuel consumption and emissions but need flexibility for long trips. They choose plug-in hybrids. Still others want zero emissions and are willing to adapt their driving patterns to electric vehicle limitations. They choose fully electric. The challenge for Volkswagen is managing this transition without alienating existing customers or confusing the market. The Golf name carries enormous equity built up over 50 years. Changing what Golf means from a combustion engine compact hatchback to an electric vehicle risks losing some of that equity. However, not evolving the Golf to embrace electrification risks, making it seem outdated and irrelevant. The Golf's influence on automotive design and engineering. Beyond its direct commercial success, the Golf has profoundly influenced automotive design and engineering practices across the industry. Many of the principles and approaches pioneered or popularized by the Golf have become industry standards. The Golf's packaging efficiency, its ability to maximize interior space within compact exterior dimensions, set new benchmarks that competitors studied and emulated. Giugiaro's original design demonstrated that thoughtful packaging could create a spacious, practical vehicle without requiring large overall dimensions. This principle has become fundamental to modern automotive design, particularly for urban vehicles where compact exteriors and spacious interiors are both essential. The hatchback body style, while not invented by the Golf, was transformed from a cheap, basic format into a desirable mainstream configuration largely because of the Golf's success. Before the Golf, hatchbacks were often associated with economy cars that made compromises for affordability. The Golf demonstrated that a hatchback could be well-built, refined, and aspirational. This helped establish the hatchback as the dominant body style for compact cars in Europe and many other markets. The Golf's influence on automotive manufacturing was equally significant. Volkswagen's emphasis on build quality and precision assembly set standards that other manufacturers felt compelled to match. The satisfying thunk of closing a Golf door, resulting from careful engineering of body stiffness, door seals, and latch mechanisms, became a benchmark of perceived quality that luxury manufacturers as well as mass-market competitors sought to replicate. The platform strategy that Volkswagen developed around the Golf became a template for the entire industry. By designing flexible platforms that could underpin multiple models across different brands and segments, manufacturers could achieve economies of scale while offering customers variety. Today, virtually every major automotive manufacturer uses similar platform strategies, but Volkswagen was among the pioneers in applying this approach systematically. The hot hatch segment created by the Golf GTI demonstrated that performance could be democratized. Before the GTI, serious performance was largely the domain of expensive sports cars. The GTI proved that relatively affordable cars could deliver genuine driving thrills while maintaining everyday practicality. This concept has been widely adopted, with manufacturers across all segments now offering performance variants of ordinary models. The Golf's longevity as a model nameplate, 8 generations over 50 years, has also been influential. While some manufacturers frequently change model names and market positioning, Volkswagen's strategy of maintaining the Golf name while steadily evolving the product has created strong brand continuity. Customers know what Golf represents, and that consistency has value. Other manufacturers have adopted similar strategies, maintaining successful nameplates across multiple generations rather than starting fresh with each redesign. Personal stories. The Golf's human impact. While statistics about sales figures, market share, and financial performance tell an important part of the Golf story, they don't capture the human dimension. The millions of individual stories of people whose lives intersected with the Golf over 50 years. For many Europeans, particularly Germans, the Golf has been a constant presence across their entire lives. Children rode in Golfs to school. Teenagers learned to drive in Golfs. Young adults bought their first new Golfs with their first real paychecks. Families took vacations in Golfs. Retirees downsized to Golfs when they no longer needed larger vehicles. This multi-generational presence has created deep emotional connections that go beyond rational considerations of specifications or value. Driving instructors in many European countries have relied on Golfs for decades. The car's forgiving handling, good visibility, and reliable operation made it ideal for teaching nervous students. Countless Europeans took their driving tests in Golfs, making the car part of a formative life experience. The Golf's controls and driving position became the default against which these new drivers judged all other cars. The GTI, in particular, has inspired passionate enthusiasm among driving enthusiasts. Owners have modified their GTIs, participated in track days and driving events, and formed lasting friendships with fellow enthusiasts. For some, the GTI represents not just a car but an entire lifestyle and community. The GTI International Festival, held annually in the UK, attracts thousands of enthusiasts who gather to celebrate their shared passion for these cars. Taxi drivers and delivery companies have relied on Golfs for their durability and economy. Many Golfs have accumulated extremely high mileages, 300,000, 500,000, even occasionally exceeding 1 million kilometers, while remaining serviceable. These high-mileage examples testify to the Golf's fundamental robustness and have helped maintain the model's reputation for longevity. Police forces in several countries have used Golfs as patrol vehicles. The combination of performance, particularly in GTI form, reliability, and running costs made the Golf attractive to law enforcement agencies with limited budgets. Seeing Golfs in police livery reinforced the car's reputation as a serious, capable vehicle. For immigrants and expatriates, the Golf has sometimes served as a tangible connection to home. Germans living abroad have sought out Golfs as a reminder of home. The car's presence in many international markets has made this possible in a way that wouldn't be true for more regionally limited models. Environmental activists have faced complicated relationships with the Golf, particularly diesel variants. For years, the Golf TDI was seen as an environmentally responsible choice, offering low CO2 emissions and excellent fuel economy. The Dieselgate scandal shattered this perception, leaving many owners who had chosen these cars for environmental reasons feeling betrayed. Some became advocates for stricter regulations and corporate accountability. Others defended their cars, arguing that the vehicle's real-world environmental impact was still better than many alternatives. Economic impact beyond Volkswagen. The Golf's success has created economic benefits that extend far beyond Volkswagen itself. The model has supported extensive economic ecosystems in multiple countries and regions. Suppliers who produce components for the Golf have built substantial businesses around these contracts. Everything from seats to electronics to tires creates employment and economic activity. In some cases, suppliers have located facilities near Volkswagen plants specifically to serve Golf production, creating localized industrial clusters. These suppliers often employ thousands of workers whose livelihoods depend directly or indirectly on the Golf's continued success. Volkswagen's dealership networks, built substantially on Golf sales, employ salespeople, mechanics, part specialists, and administrative staff. In smaller towns across Europe, the local Volkswagen dealer is often a significant employer and community presence. Many of these dealers have been family businesses passed down through generations, growing alongside the Golf's success. The aftermarket and modification industry has flourished around the Golf, particularly the GTI. Companies produce performance parts, aesthetic modifications, and accessories specifically for various Golf generations. This aftermarket industry includes both large multinational corporations and small specialist businesses. Enthusiasts spend billions of euros collectively on modifying and personalizing their Golfs. The used car market for Golfs is substantial and economically significant. The Golf's strong residual values mean that used Golfs provide reliable transportation for budget-conscious buyers who cannot afford new cars. This extends mobility to lower-income individuals and families, with positive social and economic effects. The Golf's reputation for durability means that even older, high-mileage examples can provide years of service, creating a multi-tiered used market that serves buyers at various price points. Insurance companies have built their risk models and pricing around cars like the Golf. The model's safety record, theft statistics, and repair costs all factor into insurance premium calculations that affect millions of policyholders. The Golf's generally favorable profile in these areas, good safety, moderate theft risk, reasonable repair costs, has contributed to affordable insurance premiums. The training and skills development associated with Golf production and maintenance have created valuable human capital. Workers who have learned to build or service Golfs have acquired transferable skills valuable throughout the automotive industry and beyond. Engineering students have studied the Golf as an example of effective design and manufacturing, influencing how they approach their own later work. Conclusion: the enduring legacy. As we look back across the 50-plus years since the Golf's introduction in 1974, its historical significance becomes even clearer. The Golf didn't just save Volkswagen from bankruptcy, it transformed the company and influenced the entire automotive industry. The immediate financial rescue was crucial, of course. Without the Golf's success, Volkswagen would likely have collapsed in the mid-1970s, unable to overcome the 800 million Deutschmark loss and the fundamental uncompetitiveness of its product line. The human cost of such a collapse, hundreds of thousands of job losses, devastated communities, failed suppliers and dealers, would have been immense. The German government might have attempted some form of bailout or restructuring, but there's no guarantee that such efforts would have succeeded in creating a viable company. Instead, the Golf's success allowed Volkswagen not just to survive but to thrive. The company became one of the world's largest automotive manufacturers, eventually overtaking Toyota to become the world's best-selling automotive group, though the Dieselgate scandal and other challenges have since affected its position. This success created and sustained millions of jobs worldwide and contributed substantially to the German economy and those of other countries where Volkswagen operates. The Golf established templates and standards that continue to shape the automotive industry. The platform strategy, the packaging efficiency, the emphasis on build quality in mass-market vehicles, the concept of the hot hatch, all of these owe significant debts to the Golf. Virtually every compact car produced today exists in a market segment that the Golf helped define and shape. For individuals, the Golf has been a reliable companion across life's journeys. It has been the car that got people to work, took families on vacations, taught teenagers to drive, and provided elderly people with independence and mobility. These countless individual stories don't appear in corporate financial reports, but they represent the Golf's true impact, making people's lives better, easier, and more enjoyable through reliable, quality transportation. Looking forward, the Golf faces perhaps its greatest challenge since the 1970s. The transition to electric propulsion represents a fundamental change in automotive technology comparable to the shift from rear-engine to front-engine, front-wheel drive that the original Golf embodied. Whether the Golf name will successfully make this transition or whether Volkswagen's electric future will be built around new nameplates like the ID series remains to be seen. What seems certain is that the Golf's influence will persist regardless of what happens to the nameplate itself. The principles that made the Golf successful, practical design, quality execution, thoughtful engineering, and continuous improvement, remain relevant in any era and with any propulsion technology. These principles saved Volkswagen in the 1970s and have guided the company ever since. The story of the Golf is ultimately a story about adaptation, innovation, and the willingness to embrace change even when it means abandoning comfortable old ways. Volkswagen's reluctance to move beyond the Beetle nearly destroyed the company. The courage to develop and commit to the Golf saved it. That lesson, the necessity of evolution, the danger of complacency, the value of bold decision-making in crisis, resonates far beyond the automotive industry. In a world facing rapid technological change, environmental challenges, and economic uncertainty, the Golf story offers both inspiration and instruction. It shows that companies can overcome seemingly existential threats through smart strategy and excellent execution. It demonstrates that quality and consistency create lasting value. And it proves that sometimes, the right product at the right time can change everything. The Volkswagen Golf saved Volkswagen from bankruptcy. But more than that, it established a standard of excellence that has influenced automotive design and engineering for half a century. It has been a companion to millions of people across multiple generations. And it has demonstrated that thoughtful design, quality execution, and continuous improvement never go out of style, regardless of changing technologies and market conditions. That legacy extends far beyond quarterly earnings reports or sales statistics. It lives in the memories of everyone who has owned, driven, or even just ridden in a Golf. It persists in the standards and practices that the Golf helped establish across the automotive industry. And it continues to shape how we think about what makes a great car, not just performance or luxury or technology, but the more holistic excellence that comes from doing everything well. That is the Golf's true gift, and that is why its rescue of Volkswagen matters not just as corporate history, but as a testament to the enduring value of quality, innovation, and thoughtful design.